Okay, so very good evening to all of you. I'm Dr. Kirtan. I am assistant professor in community medicine, currently working in Shamli, and I thank Dr. Sehok for giving me the opportunity to be part of today's workshop or seminar. So today's very, I think, a critical thing we are about to discuss. If we see it from a research point of view, so sample size is always a critical thing. So I hope you all will get your answers to the questions that you will have in due course of time during this presentation. So I request all of you to please put your questions in the chat box so that we can answer all those queries at the end of the presentation or in between, whatever will be the justifiable time for us. So I would like to invite Sehok sir for giving the introductory speech. So to the sir, Sehok sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Keetan. Thank you very much for introducing the session. So this particular session is a part of the series that IPS West Zone Research Committee takes over. We generally do one webinar per month. It's generally scheduled on the third Monday. However, this time, for some circumstances, we had to reschedule ourselves. In this line, Dr. Deepak Patil has been our guest for the second time in this particular series. First time he talked about the study designs and the different kind of studies. And his session was extremely popular. And this is on-demand webinar that we have invited him all over again. It doesn't really happen that you invite people from outside fraternity. So psychiatrists had been keen to listen to him. And as you all know, this is a time when there are a lot of researches that are going on in various institutes. The STS project, the student projects are ongoing. The thesis submission dates are approaching. And in all these things, the sample size calculation is a frequent query. Probably 10 years back, it was not that frequently asked by the journals. But however, now each and every journal, when you submit a paper to them, they ask for how did you reach to the sample size that you have reached. So I think there would be great learning in this particular webinar from Deepak Patil, who will enlighten us on the sample size calculation. I'm not really sure that we'll be able to replace him altogether, the community medicine altogether, but at least we'll have some learning and some basic stuff we should be able to do. Over to you, Kirtan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So now I would like to introduce today's chairperson. So is my screen visible?
Yes. Anup, you there?
Yes, yes.
Is it full screen, sir? Is it full screen?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. So I welcome the chairperson for today's webinar, Dr. Anup Subhash Bharti, sir. Sir, welcome to the webinar. So I would like to tell something about sir, that he has done his MBBS from RCSM Government Medical College, Kolhapur. Sir has done his MD Psychiatry from Grant Medical College and Sir JJ Hospital, Mumbai. So currently he is working as professor and head of the department at Dr. Vasantrao Pawar Medical College, Nashik. So sir is consultant psychiatrist at Mansparsh Clinic, Mumbai Naka, Nashik. So he is founder director of Sarathya Psychiatric Hospital Rehabilitation and De-Addiction Center, Nashik. So he represent Maharashtra state in Indian Psychiatry Society West Zone branch. Sir is executive council member IMA Nashik. So thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. So over to you, Sehok, sir.
Yeah, Anup, over to you for the introduction of the chairperson. Kirtan, can you post the slides of Dr. Deepak?
Sorry.
Put up the slide of Dr. Deepak Patil so that I can introduce.
Sure, sure, sir. Just a minute, sir. Is it visible, sir?
No, not yet.
Yogendra? Acha, ha, got it. Got it.
Yes, yes.
Now it's visible.
So very good evening to all, and first of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Suyog Jaiswal for arranging this wonderful lecture today, which is required for the all the researchers regarding the sample size calculation. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Deepak Patil sir, who is currently working as a professor, Department of Community Medicine at MG Medical College, Navi Mumbai. He is an approved faculty for research methodology by MUHS, conducted research methodology workshop in various medical colleges, almost 10 original research articles in index journals, and he has trained himself in various data analysis tools such as SPSS, Epidata, QGI softwares. Advanced course in medical education sir has completed, and conducting non-violent communication sessions since November 2022. Apparently very important topic from a psychiatrist point of view also, all the psychiatrists also. Sir's area of interest are research methodology, biostatistics, and community outreach activities, and psychotherapy, that is RECBT. Maybe because of Dr. Shubhangi madam, he has developed this special interest. Over to you, Deepak Patil sir.
Thank you, Anup, for that kind introduction. We know each other for quite some time now. It's very good to see you, Anup, here.
Yeah, thank
Shall
you.
I,
Thank you.
shall I share the screen?
Yes, you can definitely start.
So, if is it visible? The screen is visible.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Yes.
So, if you remember, we initiated this series with the session on study designs, building a little bit on the same study designs and related topic. Today, I'm going to probably sensitize you in sample size calculation. You are a very good psychiatrist, and you be the psychiatrist. You don't need to become statistician at all, but simultaneously you need to know where and why, probably, and what sort of information you should be providing to the one person, that is statistician or the research methodology expert, in order to get your sample size calculation done. And if you are keen enough, you can also pursue the calculation on your own. So I want to conduct this study today. The first primary objective I can select as to study the mean IQ of the psychiatrist in this session. I hope nobody is offended doing this study. And I can measure the IQ using your standard IQ testing kit, and probably I have to employ a psychologist for that. And I can get the IQ calculated. Similarly, if I don't want to measure IQ, I select some other objective, like how many of these psychiatrists in this group are having burnout. So how many of them have burnout? So if you see these two objectives, in first objective, I'm trying to get the average IQ of the psychiatrist in this session. And in the second objective, I'm trying to get how many of them are having burnout. So in first objective, it is a quantitative data where I'm getting a mean, while in the another objective, it is a proportion, which is a qualitative data where I'm going to get how many of them have the burnout. Now, the sample here in these studies is nothing but the faculties and the residents who are attending this session. And it's a very small group. As of now, I can see probably 23 candidates, including me and my screen. So maybe 21 candidates are there. And one community medicine, if I subtract, then 20. So the sample of this study is 20 as of now. No matter whether I do IQ or I do the burnout assessment. Now, whom you are representing actually, that is a study population. So you are representing all the faculties and residents in similar setting. So probably I can say very surely that all the psychiatrists and residents across different medical college or cities in Maharashtra or in Mumbai or in India, I can go to any extent, that becomes my representative study population. And I can do the study in this entire population as well. But it is not feasible. I may end up spending too much resources, too much time, and I can't every time study the entire population. And that's why we end up selecting a sample. So as you can see, the red circle here is the study population and the small blue circle is the sample for this study. Now, I also want you to be aware of certain terms. So study population and sample you are already aware and you are using. I just tried to put in perspective. Whatever we get from the sample studies, okay, that finding is actually an estimate. Like in this case, IQ, average IQ of all the psychiatrists, or the proportion of burnout among the psychiatrists. These are nothing but sample estimate. Similarly, the finding of entire population is called as parameter. So parameter is always coming from the population, while sample estimates are always coming from the sample studies. And all studies are based on samples. So we actually get estimates. We don't get the parameter value usually. We don't have it. So do you think that if I study the IQ, whatever average IQ I'll get, 120, 130, whatever it is, will it be the exact IQ of the entire population of psychiatrists and residents across India? It will be always a little bit different from that. So I may get average of 120 and in reality it may be the average of 125. So the estimate is 120 while the parameter is 125, which I don't know, which probably we may not know at all because it's very difficult to study the entire population. So there will be always a gap between the estimate from the study sample and the parameter value of the population from which the sample is taken. And this gap represents the sampling error. So we'll be always little bit away from the population reality. So nobody want to be away from the reality. We want to be as close as possible to the population finding. And there where the sample size rule comes in. So to minimize this sampling error in technical terms, to minimize this gap, to minimize the difference between sample estimate and population parameter, it is must to calculate sample size using appropriate method. So how much sample size? Probably this much. Will it be large enough to ensure that I am not too much away from the population reality? So let's find out. So sample size calculation is actually needed for generalizability of the finding from the study sample to the general population or the population to which it is representing, thereby limiting the sampling errors. That means the gap between sample estimate and the population parameter is minimum, and also the ensuring the feasibility of data collection, because studying a very large sample or studying the entire population is almost impossible. So it is said that a properly taken adequate sample is absolutely better than a haphazardly taken large sample. So just if the time and resources available, that doesn't mean you are going to use all the resources and trying to get as much as sample as you can. An unnecessary large sample also should be avoided considering the scarcity of resources. Let's take this example. I think everybody takes bath. I don't think there is anyone who don't take bath. So this is my study. I have published it. You can think about it if you are taking a shower bath. So this study says that just like smoking and lung cancer, this says that shower bath is associated with dementia. I purposefully selected this topic being all the psychiatrists in this in this session. So when we begin this study, today the assumption is people are taking shower bath. Psychiatrists are also taking shower bath. Everybody is taking shower bath. And we are not afraid of having dementia because today's understanding is there is no association between shower bath and dementia. And that's what our null hypothesis is. So usually it is said that why we have to state a null hypothesis. So null hypothesis already exists. We don't create it from a zero thing. So we just give a verbatim form to it. So this study proved that there is association between shower bath and dementia. And the null hypothesis to that is there is no association between shower bath and dementia. So am I close to the population reality then if I prove this? Nobody knows the population reality as of now because we haven't completely generated the evidence to refute this claim. There are many kind of associations like this. For example, mobile use and brain tumor. We are using mobile. Our current understanding, the kind of mobile use we have is not associated with brain tumor. But if in future the evidence proves otherwise, we need to be following all the precautionary measures. So if this study has proven this, there are possibility of having a distance from the population reality. That means the sampling error is there. So what are the errors generally we have when in an IQ, you will easily understand that the average IQ of a sample, the value of average IQ of the sample study is always going to be a bit different from the population IQ. But here in this case, in your study, the association is proved, but in reality, the association is not there. So there are possibility of having a sampling errors when we find any sample estimates. So when will be the correct decision? Suppose the null hypothesis is rejected and it is a false null hypothesis. So will it be a correct decision? Or the null hypothesis is accepted and actually it is a true null hypothesis. Will it be a correct decision? If anybody can, which one are the correct decisions in this particular scenario? That means there is no association between the dementia and shower bath, and you are also rejecting the null hypothesis. Is it a correct decision? When there is no association, should we reject or accept the null hypothesis? Anybody, please? Am I audible? Sorry.
Yes, sir, you are audible. People
I'm just trying to get a response. Which one are the correct decision here? Suppose I say shower bath and dementia are associated. That is what I have proven. The null hypothesis for that is there is no association between shower bath and dementia. The null hypothesis in population reality is actually true. That there is no association in reality also. Now in population reality, if it is true, and if we accept it, is it a correct decision?
Wrong decision, sir.
No, it's a correct one. No, in population also there is no, and in our study also we are accepting it. Yes, there is no association. Okay, I am here. So in reality also there is no association between shower bath and dementia, and your study also you are showing that there is no association, so you are accepting the null hypothesis. So null hypothesis is true in population and you accepted it becomes a correct decision. Similarly, null hypothesis is false and you are rejecting it, that is also a correct decision. And the other two are sampling errors. So when there is no association, okay, and we still accept the null hypothesis, that is a correct decision. But when there is null hypothesis is true, but still we are rejecting it. So actually association है, but हम कह रहे हैं कि association नहीं है, so that becomes type 1 error. It is something that act of commission we are trying to relate. So जिसका गुनाह नहीं है उसको भी अगर फांसी पे चढ़ा दिया जाए तो type 1 error हो जाएगा. You know, there is a very famous saying in Bollywood that कि 100 गुनहगार छूट जाए तो चलेगा. I think everybody understand Hindi, right? So if the criminals अगर 100 गुनहगार छूट भी जाए तो चलेगा, but किसी बेगुनाह को सजा नहीं होनी चाहिए. So innocent person shouldn't be hanged. Hanging is an act of commission. So type 1 error is act of commission. And that's why type 1 error should be as minimum as possible. While the null hypothesis is accepted, even though it was false, is a type 2 error. So today, even if we commit type 2 error, people are taking shower bath and they are continuing it since so long. So it is already a practice that we have accepted the null hypothesis of shower bath and dementia are not associated. And if we accept it even though it is false, that becomes the type 2 error. So in future, it might be proven eventually with more evidences. And that's why type 2 error are okay to tolerate to some extent, but type 1 error has to be very stringent. So these are act of omission. We are not taking any preventive measures against shower bath right now. We are not having any particular precautions against shower bath right now. That is act of omission, no prevention. Act of commission, you are deliberately trying to intervene. That is act of commission, like hanging or starting precautionary measures immediately. So to keep it little palatable, type 1 error, you are telling a male person that you are pregnant, and type 2 error, you are telling a pregnant woman that you are not pregnant. So which is rarely likely to be missed. So type 2 error are little not stringent, but type 1 error are very stringent. Briefing you all of this, I understand is little probably overwhelming, but why I want to mention before I go to the actual sample size calculation is because in sample size calculation, we have to ensure that the permissible level of this sampling error is being followed. You cannot have the sampling error beyond a permissible limit, and the limits are already being set. For type 1 error, it is 0.5, which is your very famous p-value. It is nothing but a probability of committing type 1 error, and we call it as p-value routinely. So it has to be less than 0.05. That means your likeliness of committing type 1 error is less than 0.05. And the another one is type 2 error, that is also represented as power of study. So it is fixed to 0.2. And the power of study we call as 80% because we subtract this 0.2 from 1 and convert that into a percentage. So 0.2 subtracted from 1 becomes 0.8 and it is expressed as percentage as 80%. So what p-value you use is nothing but a probability of committing type 1 error. Your most of the studies, your most of the researchers and thesis, you have p-value being quoted everywhere. And when you mention that it is the probability of type 1 committing error, which is less than 0.05. That means my finding is not away from population reality. It can be generalized. Okay. Similarly, when we mention power of study, we are ensuring that the type 2 error is fixed to the level of 0.2, not more than that. So with this background, that why sample size estimation is must to ensure that our sampling errors are not beyond permissible limits. If you don't estimate sample size, you cannot be sure about your sampling errors. In fact, you cannot use any test of significance. You cannot generalize your study findings. You cannot extrapolate your study findings. And in all quantitative research, sample size calculation is must. So I think I tried to make a point with this little bit theoretical background why sample size estimation is must. You have not probably completely sink in this type 1 and type 2 error concept in one go. You must have heard it earlier also, but you have to understand, unless we calculate sample size, we cannot be sure that our type 1 and type 2 error are fixed to the permissible limits. Okay. So with this background, I'll keep this more a practical session right now. Am I okay, Suyog and Anup, to go ahead like this? Suyog, are you there?
Yes, surely.
Okay, Anup, thank you. So till now we need to remember that sample size calculation is must, and I tried to give a bit background behind it. That's it. So we have calculated a sample size last time also for one of this kind of study. The study is very simple. To find the proportion of postpartum depression among mothers delivered in a tertiary hospital. So we are going to enroll all the mothers delivered in tertiary hospitals. We are going to subject them to the postpartum depression screening by the expert or using scales, and we'll get to know how many of them have postpartum depression. So this becomes a simple descriptive cross-sectional study. There is no follow-up. There is no retrospective data collection. There is no intervention. That's why it is a simple descriptive cross-sectional study where we are interested in getting the proportion of women having postpartum depression, those who are delivered in this hospital. So to calculate the sample size for this particular primary objective, I tried to search certain articles, and this is the article I got. This is a review article. You can actually find a descriptive cross-sectional study with the same variable, that means postpartum depression, from the recent publications. So I got this publication in a Sage journals, and it is from 2024. If you click the link, you will go to the actual paper. In this paper, they mention that the proportion of postpartum depression among women delivered in hospitals is ranging from 4 to 48% across different Indian studies. This is the Indian context. And the average postpartum depression proportion, that means they have cumulatively calculated the total of all the proportions and just divided it. So they say that it is somewhere 18%. Now this is the information is available to me from the published literature. I have given the reference as well. Once I have this information, it becomes easier for me to calculate the sample size. So if I click on the OpenAP link menu, which I had used last time also, so it will direct us to a website, which is this website. Is it visible to everyone? OpenAP.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
Yeah. If you can open a side screen and want to try, you can do that. I have requested that last time also. So here on the left side of this website, you can find that there is an option of sample size. I think now it must be visible to you on my screen. And since we are interested in finding the proportion of postpartum depression among those women delivered in hospital, I'll click on the option of proportion. So the moment I click, this kind of window will appear. And then I have to click on enter new data. There are some values being put into this page right from the beginning. So we will not change anything of that. So one is population size. I'll keep it the value which is there already. Now the second is they are asking me the anticipated percentage or frequency. In bracket they have written P, and that P is nothing but the proportion we got from the published literature, which was 18% on an average. So I'm going to put the value as 18. Can you see I've changed the value to 18? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So then there is next question, next box, that is on the right side also you can read, there is written as absolute precision. This also you can read, but it creates a little confusion because somewhere we use confidence level, somewhere we use confidence limits. So I'm not using that term. I'll stick to this absolute precision term. Sometimes it is also called as allowable error. So this is something a researcher choice. The researcher can keep it up to 20 because our type 2 error is 0.2. This is expressed in percentage. In short, you are fixing the type 2 error here. As I said, you cannot be more than 0.2. So you have to take the value of either 20% or lesser than that. Now, the other meaning of this, am I okay to be away from the population reality, which is here in this case from published article is 18%. 18 plus minus 20 is too much. That means वो 0 भी आया तो चलेगा and 40 भी आया तो चलेगा. Because if I take it 20, so I have come to a consensus that I'll take it as 5. So any value less than 20 is fine here because your upper limit for type 2 error is 0.2. That means 20%. In short, the power of study has to be 80%. Okay. Now there is one more thing which usually we all don't need, but in case you have a different kind of sampling technique, especially you have a cluster sampling technique, then only we use this last option. So leave it as it is. So with these two, 18 and 5, you can try different figures also because the article says the prevalence was less than, as low as 4%. So you can try with the value of 4. If I write 4 here instead of 18, then I have to change this value. I have to take less than 4 because I am not okay with having the deviation plus minus 5 around 4. Okay, it is not logical. That's why it has to be either less than 20 or less than the p value. The proportion value, not the p value of 0.05. Where the p means proportion value. So with this input, if I calculate, the sample size is coming as 227. Why the first 227? Because here the confidence level is 95%, which means the alpha error is fixed to 0.05. Now, just to complicate our lives, the nomenclature is different. Okay, for example, if I say p value 0.05, that means the alpha error is 0.05. That means the type 1 error is 0.05. That also means the confidence level is 95%. That also means the level of significance is 5%. The meaning still remains same. So when I say this confidence level 95%, that means the alpha error is 0.05. So for that, the estimated sample size has to be 227. And you can see that 5% what we have selected as a absolute precision, it is showing in plus minus with 18%. That's why I said if I take it 4%, I cannot take 5. I have to take it less than 4. That means it has to be less than the proportion value here. Or it should be less than 20 at least. If your proportion is more than 20, which might be possible, like in the same article, they say that it can be up to 45%. So if you take 45% as the proportion value, we can certainly take 20 as the absolute precision. So this is something researcher has to decide, but the upper cutoff is being set. So for this study, we need to estimate, we need to enroll 227 subjects as per this calculation. Now the formula is also available. In fact, the step-by-step illustration is available on the home page when you start when you click on the help button. So you will have all the steps, all the formula, the references, and all the details in the same sequence what I did just now. So you can always go back and check whether what step you followed is correct or not. So with this, our estimation is almost complete. So we'll go back to the next part, that is the write-up, how to write this in the study protocol or thesis or the article which are sending you for publication. So I have written the write-up in the next slide. Here it is. I would request everybody to just read the write-up silently. I'm not going to read it for you. So the write-up mentions that using some formula which we obtained from this source, it did mention the study design. That's why the study design knowledge is important before you actually go for sample size calculation. It did mention the type of data, that is qualitative, because it's a proportion. I calculated for 5% absolute precision, but here in this write-up, I have used 10%, being 18% as the proportion we are using for calculation. I can take up to 10% as well. I've mentioned that it has to be less than 20 or it has to be less than the proportion value which you're using, which is in this case 18%. It needs to be specified and mentioned in the write-up that the proportion of postpartum psychosis was 18% among women in India. I had also mentioned the reference article. If you are giving numbers to the reference, then you have to mention that reference number here. And I've written, sorry. Any question is there?
So, like in most cases of cross-sectional study, we generally do purposive sampling. Sir, how do the sample size calculation vary in that? Because simple random mostly we don't do in hospital cases.
I understand that, and there where our study findings are not actually acceptable, or probably our quality of research is not being at par with the standards with the other journals or other regions. So instead of writing purposive sampling, I would request to mention the term sequential enumeration of the study subjects, which is actually a purposive sampling kind of, but at least it is technically better. But I would request to prepare the sampling frame in advance and try to follow the simple random sampling as much as you can. In NIMHANS, they have this system where the study protocol, the inclusion-exclusion criteria are displayed in every OPD where the likely participant is probably going to visit. And whoever is sitting in that OPD is being oriented and they have to call the study researcher or they have to fill in the basic details so that the study researcher can get in touch with that sample. So if that particular subjects fall into the sampling frame and shortlisted into the simple random sampling, it gets straight away enrolled in the study directly as a sample. But again, this requires a lot of teamwork and a lot of motivation. So as far as possible, try to follow to some extent. If not, at least technically write the term as sequential enumeration instead of purposive sampling, because a non-probability sampling is not at all acceptable in quantitative research. The moment it is purposive sampling, you have to change your methodology to a qualitative research where you are dealing with verbatim or text. There are no numbers and there is no sample size calculation. There are no tables, there are no mean, average, frequency, percentage, no graphs. That is more of a qualitative research. But in all quantitative research, the sampling method has to be probability sampling to the extent you can follow. If you cannot follow, at least try to be technically correct using the term complete sequential enumeration. I think I've tried to answer your question, Dr. Nitisha.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So when we, in this write-up, we should also add up to the non-response rate. As you can see, I've added up. And then also I've tried to round off the sample to the nearest value. So the question might come, what if I don't get the required number? So whatever number you get, you need to calculate the non-response rate for your study and mention it in your methodology, this is the non-response rate in my study. But your basic minimum is 57 here, which should be met. If you take the absolute precision 5% instead of 10, then the sample size has to be calculated sample size goes to 227. And then you have to add 10% of that, and also you have to round off. And you have to ensure the sampling method as one of the probability sampling method, preferably simple random or systematic. So there is a question usually, which one figure I should be meeting? So this is the original estimated figure you should be minimally getting. Whatever you don't get above than this, suppose I have estimated here some 70, but if I get only 57, I will write that the non-response rate in my study was 12%, something like that. So this minimum becomes essential. Below this, your alpha and beta error gets violated. Then you cannot use your p-value. Even if you use the p-value, you cannot be sure about your beta error either. So is this understanding, is this write-up understandable by everyone? There is hardly any difficulty in understanding if you have followed the calculation step what we went so far. I just mentioned the steps in a verbatim form into this slide and just added the non-response rate and the sampling method. So if you see the highlighted words, the red ones are like your check. You mentioned the source, that is must. Your absolute precision has to be less than 20 or less than the proportion which you are using. So these are like checks. Your reference of the proportion which you are using has to be there. It can be a pilot study, it can be a textbook, it can be some website which is being followed by most of your fraternities. So it has to be a relevant reference article. Apart from that, there are certain bold blacks where the study design mentioning is must. The type of data you are using, qualitative or quantitative, is also must. The precision value decided by you should be also must there. The variable, that is postpartum depression in this case, it has to be mentioned what the percentage means. Many times the sample size estimation is written, but they don't write the percentage or the proportion belongs to which variable. It is of what variable. So this was my primary objective, to find the proportion of postpartum psychosis, and the same variable I have found out from the research article, published research article. So these are certain essential integral part of sample size write-ups. There are certain journals or certain universities do demand the formula too, and yes, you can give the formula in that case, and it is available on the website. The explanation of the formula is also available. The source of this formula is also available. So we can always provide that details if it is being asked. In thesis, if you want to include the formula, you can add that formula below this write-up or before this write-up, and you can mention the details of each of the symbol in the formula too. It is already being there in that website page. So if we just try to sum up what we did just now, we identified the study design from our primary objective. We got the, yeah, Nitisha, you can ask.
Sir, two things I wanted to know, sir. In the previous slide, first you have written the qualitative type of data. So that is because either the PPD will be present or absent. So nominal
Yes,
type,
exactly.
that is why we have written.
Yes.
Sir. And second thing, sir, how much of non-response rate is allowed, sir?
So that depends on your previous experience or how much people might not, continue the study even if they give consent initially. So it is usually roughly taken anything between 10 to 30%. If it is an interventional study, they take it as high as 10-30%, because losing too many patients, then their study won't meet the minimum required criteria. So in interventional studies, usually it is higher than the cross-section studies. So usually we follow any value between 10 to 30%, but your experience previously or your pilot study might give you a bit of idea how much non-response rate should be taken.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So if you just reflect back what we did just now, we identified the study design from the primary objective. Then we got the information on postpartum depression from a relevant reference article. I am underlining the word relevant here because you can't take an article which is published 20 years back, or you can't take the article which is not in Indian context if it is, studies in Indian context. So we need to be as close as possible to our study when we select the reference article. It is possible that you may not get the exact reference, then still you have to be as close as possible to your study so that you can use the reference article for sample size calculation. If it is not at all available, the only option remains either textbooks or pilot study. The reference article need not to be always some particular study design. It can be a review article, a comment by expert where he has quoted the reference for the values. So even that is doable. Like in the earlier Sage publication, it is more of a review article. So I've just used and he has mentioned from where he got 4%, from where he got 18%. He has given the references in that. So you can use a review article also, but preferably it has to be close to your study design if feasible and possible. So many a times the problem comes here. That's why I've highlighted in red. When we ask for a review article, there is no review article available. I mean, when we ask for a reference article, there is no reference article available. Unless you give this information to the statistician or to the one who is supposed to help you out with sample size calculation, you won't be able to calculate the sample size. And then the other expertise come, like if you have you are clear about study design, you are clear about objective, you have the reference, but you don't know which formula, then probably the software can help you out, or you can take the help of statistician. I already mentioned these errors, so I'm not going to discuss them, but they are being already fixed the moment we have put the values in there. As you saw, the confidence level 90% means alpha error is 0.05. When we put the absolute precision as 5%, the beta error got fixed to 95, 0.5, 0.05. So likewise, we'll have to fix the alpha and beta errors, and we have to decide the absolute precision only in case of a descriptive cross-section study. Later on, you don't have to decide for other designs, but in descriptive cross-sectional study, the researcher has a choice to decide the beta error. So with this steps, I will take the next example. Now here, the primary objective is to find the mean resilience score among full-time practitioner psychiatrists. So there is some scale, resilience scale, which can be used and applied among all the psychiatrists and the psychiatrists selected in the study, and we'll get the score. And the researcher is interested in knowing the mean score. Now you might wonder that usually your studies are not this simple. You have multiple things: quality of life, burnout scale, coping scale. So you have multiple things. Now you need to be very sure what is your primary objective. You can take 100 scale in your study, no matter. But eventually your sample size calculation will be based on only one thing, and that is your primary objective. So if your primary objective is something else and your sample size estimation is based on something else, then again that is not acceptable. So if you are not sure what is your primary objective, then you have to calculate the sample size using all the variables. So you'll get different values, and whichever gives you maximum value of sample size, that you have to use, because that will cover for every other variable. But usually the researchers are aware what is their primary objective, and the variable in that has to be selected in order to get the reference articles for sample size estimations. So here in this case, I am interested in finding the mean resilience score. So I got this particular reference, which is a Journal of Health Education and Promotion, available on a PMC, that PubMed Central. We are measuring the resilience and impact among young medical professionals. Now you will say that our study is in among psychiatrists, and you got the reference of a medical professional, that too young, probably students. Yes, it is a student study. So as I said, you may not get the exact reference, but you have to be close by. So I probably missed to find the close by reference here. And that's why my sample size estimation based on this reference might be questioned. Okay. So the option remains is you still find out the article who has used some resilience score scale in psychiatry, probably not in India, but from some other country. and try to get that information. If not, you have to do a pilot. That is the last resort. But pilot is not something recommended always for calculating sample size estimations. Okay, because apparently for pilot study also you need to calculate sample size again. So there is no consensus among researchers and statisticians and epidemiologists about using pilot as the basis for sample size estimation. But it is fairly being used in most of the universities and also across journals. So it is being recommended and followed actually. But primarily it has to be a research article. So now you can say if there is no research available among psychiatrists where the resilience score is being found out, then I am okay to use this as a reference because this is the close by I could get. Again, this vary from reviewer to reviewer. Some journal may not accept it. So you need to be very cautious while quoting your reference. It has to be as close as possible to your original study. Okay. So in this study, as this study mentioned that the mean resilience score was found to be 25.1 and the standard deviation was 7.9. As actually I was not able to shift my bar, but I can drag it up. You can see it, right? 7.97 is the standard deviation. So this is the information I required from the published article. This is the article published in 2023. So again, a recent time article, we can use it. Again, I said it might be still questionable. So with this, I would go to the, if you can see, there are two options being given in this slide for calculation. Is it visible to you? Because my bar is actually coming in between. Actually, it's visible, right? Can you see there is no OpenAP in the reference in the link. You see there is one DRSM kind of reference, and another is a Excel sheet actually. So this is where only the OpenAP has limitation. It doesn't give a sample size estimation when it comes to mean and SD of a quantitative variable. So let me take you to one of this platform. Which one you want to see, the Excel one or the website one?
Both, sir.
Both won't be feasible because then we will not be able to finish what we have started. So I think I'll take the website one. Okay. Okay, I'll take the website one right now. Oh, sorry, Excel one I have to. So this is the option available. You can see the formula is also there. The reference is also there. Is it visible?
Yes,
Is
sir.
it visible to you?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
And this is the Excel base. This Excel sheet has all options available, but if you go through every option, it is too confusing. That's why I prefer OpenAP because it has only 4 options and they are sufficient for our regular sample size estimation. This is the another link which I had given in that slide. This is also sample size estimation for. It has also again all the options. So if I go on the home page, so this is the way it will look like. It has sample size estimation for all the options involved, including the power estimation also retrospectively. So this is more than just sample size. So if I click on I'm interested in finding the mean. So that is because I want to find the mean score of that particular resilience scale among psychiatrists. So I will click on this. So this particular web page will come. Is it visible to all?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Visible. So if you remember from the published article, we have taken the standard deviation of 7.97 for the resilience score scale. The confidence level has to be 95% minimum to fix the alpha error. So I fixed the alpha error to 0.05 by writing confidence level as 95%. Again, you found that absolute, see somewhere the term allowable error uses, but here that you have given absolute. So here now we need to check the mean. The mean was 25.1. So how much I am okay to be away from this, so that I can put. Again, I cannot go beyond 20. So since it is 25.1, I can take the absolute precision as high as 20. But usually in a data where there is mean and edges, the absolute precision should be as low as possible. So let's take 1. Let's see how much it gets. So I just want to be away from the mean only plus minus 1. That means 25.1 plus minus 1, not more than that. Imagine something like serum creat. Serum creat average value is around 1.2, 1.3 max. So you cannot take absolute precision of 2 or 5. You have to take it in points. So you will say 1.2 average, so I will be okay with absolute precision of 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. So it could be as low as that. So here the bottom line is in quantitative data where mean and SDs are there, our absolute precision has to be as low as possible. So if I click on sample size calculation, it has calculated sample size for me. Can you see that it is how much?
Yes, sir. 245.
240. Okay. So if I want to put this into a write-up, again, this website also gives all formulas and all the references. So my write-up will be like this. So I'll leave it up to you to read because it is pretty similar what you read earlier. So I have mentioned the study design. From my primary objective, I know it is a quantitative variable. It is the mean resilience score. I have decided the absolute precision as 1. The mean resilience score I got from the published article, which is not exactly same to mine, but close by, was 25.1. The standard deviation was 7.97. I mentioned the reference as well. I added the non-response rate, and I also mentioned the sampling method. Is there any question on this? Because here, again, for a descriptive cross-sectional study, only for the variable type being quantitative, because we are going to get some score and we are going to get some average. Earlier we got proportion, here we got average or mean. So even though the study design is same, since the variable is different, sample size formula changes. This is the only formula which is not available in OpenAP. So that's why you have to use some other domain. Like I had used the website, another website, or you can use the direct formula. Also, it's not that difficult to calculate once you know the formula. So am I clear to everyone? Any query till now? So how much time do I have henceforth? I mean, onward.
We had total 45 minutes. I think we started around your talk started around 9:50, 8:15. So another 10 minutes maybe.
Okay.
And we'll
So,
keep 5 minutes for question answer.
Yeah. So I think then I would like to have question and answer because if I have to demonstrate sample size estimation for cohort study, case control study, and RCT, and where we have comparison between two means, then that will take another pretty good time. So if there are any queries or questions, or you want to understand the website bit in more detail, I'm happy to answer that. Will that be okay, Suyo?
Yeah.
I didn't want it to rush, so I took time here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just go back to the steps, and meanwhile you can.
I'll just ask the audience if there is
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
specific they want, like case control or RCT if they want, or a comparison of means, because these are the three things that primarily are done at psychiatry,
Yes.
RCT, etc. The calculations
Yeah.
are also done. So if
Yeah.
any of these three you can demonstrate, that would be wonderful. Audience, your opinion?
Sir, comparison of means. Sir.
So comparison of mean, can we? Dr. Deepak,
Sorry, I couldn't hear. Yeah, Suyog, what is it?
can we take comparison of means?
Yes, we can take that. I have the option. You go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you.
So this is the example of a comparison between mean. You can see that the objective is to study the difference between the mean EPDS score, again some postpartum depression scale, between mothers delivered by C-section and those delivered by full-term normal delivery. So the researcher want to compare the mean score. Now this study design is again analytical cross-sectional study design, where he has enrolled the mother delivered by C-section and delivered by FGND and applied the EPDS scale to them. And then he has compared the average between these two groups. So I got a reference for this particular study, which is done in 2018. Maybe you can say little earlier. So we need to find a study which is probably in last 5 years at least. This is more than 5 years. So again, some journal might object this, but this is an Indian study where he has compared the EPDS scores, and he got the mean score between C-section and full-term normally delivery groups as you can see here, 10.85 with a standard deviation of 2.63, and in FTND group 8.85 with a standard deviation of 3.27. So our OpenAP website do have the option for comparing means. So if I go to the OpenAP website and calculate the mean, calculate the sample size. So here you can see that sample size do have option of mean difference. Can you see that? Is it visible? Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Here it is last one. If you can see above that, there is option for cohort and RCT. Okay. So irrespective of the study design, if it is cohort, RCT, or it is analytical cross-sectional, if it is a mean difference, you only have one option. You don't have to search for any other option. If it is a mean difference, select this, irrespective of the study design. So if I click on this, I'll get this kind of window where I have to enter the values which I have taken from the article. So that is somewhere 10.25. I forgot the standard deviation now, so I'll just write whatever value comes to my mind. It was somewhere between 3.7, I guess. And then here it was 8.8, I guess, in the other group. You can see this, I am replacing the values, and the standard deviation is, I don't remember now, but I'll take something as 4.2. Okay. So here I have fixed the alpha error to 0.05, it is 95, so it is already being fixed. Now you can see here the term is again different, confidence interval. But that means again saying the alpha error is fixed to 0.05. The power is fixed to 80, that means your beta error is fixed to 0.2. And this is the ratio between group 1 and group 2. So usually it is 1. In some situation you may have 1:2, 1:3. So accordingly you might have to modify. But usually we have 1:1 ratio only. So with this basic information, if I click on calculate, I got the sample size. So I have to enroll 117 subjects each if I'm using this as the reference. So total sample size become 231. Again, the formula and details are available in the help section. So with this, I need to update my write-up in the sample size write-up section of my study. So if I have to mention this as a write-up, this is how I will write it. please read and feel free to ask. So I've mentioned the sample size calculation formula source. As I said, it could be any design, so you can specify the design, although it is a quantitative data because it is a comparison between two means. And I have mentioned the reference. The original reference I had used was 10.85 and 8.85 with the standard deviation. With these values, the sample size was 35 in each group. We calculated a different because I used the different values. I could not remember these values while putting. Again, I added the non-response rate, and being two groups, I've multiplied it with that, and I've written the same statement as simple random sample. So this is how we estimate sample size for the studies where we have to compare between two means. Which set of means has to be used, that probably you might have a query when it is a cohort or when it is a case control or it is an analytical cross section. Analytical cross section, it is pretty easy because you have one set of mean and SDs only. But in cohort and RCTs, you might have two set of mean and SDs. So there you might have little confusion, but the option of calculation remains same. So I think I'm pretty clear about what is being asked. Any queries or any questions you'd like to answer?
Sir, this
Kirtana,
confidence
sir.
level and confidence interval are the same thing, sir?
Actually, confidence interval has a altogether different meaning in statistics, but we have seen these websites and books are mentioning this term interchangeably. But here it means the same. It means only one thing: alpha error is less than 0.05, no matter what term they use.
Okay. So, sir, can it be like if the alpha error is 5% and like in the first example, we saw that confidence level was 95, 90, 80 and all.
Yeah. So the nomenclature is like this. If you say alpha error, you have to write the value as 0.05. If you express this in percentage, so 0.05, that means 5%. So that is called as level of significance. So the term used is 5% level of significance. If you subtract this 5% level of significance from 100, that becomes 95. That is called as confidence level or confidence interval. But confidence interval preferably being used for when we have standard error of mean or proportion being subtracted and added from the mean or proportion values. So that is not the correct term to use. Confidence level is more appropriate term. So eventually it means the same. So if it is confidence level, they will write at 95%. If it is level of significance, they will write as 5%. And if it is alpha error or type 1 error, they will write it as 0.05. So it all means the same thing. It is nothing but the probability of committing type 1 error is 5%.
So, sir, like when you are saying that it means different in statistics. So, sir, can it happen like the confidence level is 5%, but like whatever standard error?
No. Confidence level cannot be 5%. It has to be 95%.
95, yes, sir, yes.
So and level of significance can be 5%.
5%.
That is just the nomenclature. That doesn't change the meaning. It is always type 1 error which fixed to the 0.05. Whichever term you use, it is type 1 error fixed to 0.05.
So, sir, can it happen like the level of significance is 5%, but finally that using the standard error of mean and all. So in that case, we calculate 90% confidence interval. Can that happen, sir? Or if it is 5, so we have to always calculate 95% confidence interval.
95% confidence interval is being demanded by most of the articles, most of the journals, and most of the standard platforms, because it is the actual estimation of effect size. So just like your p-value, 95% confidence interval is one of the inferential statistics. In fact, they are not interested in p-value. They will ask you to give the 95% confidence interval of your findings. So it's like you found out that the EPDS score mean difference between these two groups is significantly different. So the p-value was less than 0.05. But that doesn't tell you how much will be the range of difference in population. And that can be told only by 95% confidence interval. So whatever difference you got in your study, उसका range in population reality में कितना रहेगा, that will be told by the 95% confidence interval. So 95% confidence interval is being actually a superior type of inferential statistics as compared to p-value. Okay, in fact, you don't need p-value if you have estimated a 95% confidence interval and interpreted it correctly. Okay, so for example, in your study, the difference between EPIDS score, EPDS score in C section and the FTND group is 5. Okay, and the 95% confidence interval is coming as -2 to 10. Now it says that it can be ulta also, it could be higher in FTND group also. That means it is statistically not significant. Okay, but if the 95% confidence interval is coming somewhere as 2 to 15, so in your study it is 5, but in population reality it may range between 2 to 15. So it is statistically significant, and it is telling you the range also in population reality. It is giving you the actual effect size, that it can be as low as 2, it can be as high as 50. So 95% confidence interval has an advantage on p-value that it also tells how much the population reality might vary. Okay, so that is something a superior inferential statistics, and it is not the alpha error. It is something inferential statistics which gives the actual effect size in population reality, and it can be calculated not only for mean. It can be also calculated for proportion. It can be also calculated for difference between two mean. It can be also calculated for difference between two proportions. So usually a reputed journal, especially the good quality high impact journal, will not be asking you p-value. They will ask you the 95% confidence interval. But it is altogether a different topic. So I think it may divert the today's take home message.
So just one thing I would like to ask. Suppose level of significance is 5%. So in my study, can I calculate the like 99% confidence interval or 97%? Can I do that, sir? Or if I fix
No.
the level of significance at 5, so I have to calculate 95%.
No, your sample size calculation has to be of that confidence level then. Suppose you want to calculate the 99% confidence interval in your study findings, then your calculation has to be at the 99% confidence level. That means the p-value is fixed to 0.01.
Okay, so then both the things have to be the same. That's what I want.
Yes, both the things have to be same, right?
Okay. And sir, one last question, sir. You said suppose the article is not available related to what proportion I want to find. So I have to do a pilot. So sir, then what should be the minimum sample size for pilot?
Again, as I said, pilot is not being accepted by reputed journal because they said that for pilot study also again you need to calculate a sample size. So how we are going to do that? If it's a novel study, if it's a completely new study which is not being published, so I think the only option remains if there is a unpublished literature available which is called as grey literature. From there you can take a reference, but again it is a journal policy whether to accept it or not to accept it. That is completely subjective. There is no clear-cut guideline about that. If you check the respective guidelines for all the studies, for example, for observational studies we have Stokes guideline, and for RCT we have Consort's guideline. So in that also, if you mention that sample size is calculated using pilot, they will immediately put a query that for pilot, how did you estimate the sample size? So it is something very clearly being mentioned in these guidelines that sample size estimation has to be from a reference or from the actually the WHO document is there about sample size estimation where the study is novel or the reference article is not available. When the reference is not available, the researcher can decide. But again, there are journals who don't accept this. So only for proportion it is being used. The WHO reference, it's available in open domain. We can quote that as a reference that if the real reference is not available, WHO says that you have to take the proportion as 50%. but that is only for proportion they are given, not for mean difference, not for quantitative data. So again, the question mark is if our data is based on our sample size estimation is based on quantitative variable, then what reference to be quoted then? Only for unknown proportions, if it is not available in published article, WHO sample size estimation document is available, which says that in that case you can take it as 50%.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, so much. I think we are exceeding time limit. Thank you, sir. And I would like Chairperson, sir, to please conclude the session with the remark.
So I'll stop sharing the screen. Thank you for the patient listening, and I hope it was of some help to everyone. So
It was a really wonderful session, and a very in-depth knowledge has been shared by Dr. Deepak Patil sir. And many of these concepts, especially the like whatever happens, like being a faculty in medical college, we tend to give this task to the either PSM faculty or the statistician. But by looking at these various tools and the available websites data, I think it is a very easy task. I think we can also be able to do it. So thank you for giving the wonderful inputs.
thank you, Anup, for this appreciation.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to put this forward that all your queries, I hope we'll have like similar sessions in future also. So this sample size, because it's such an interesting session, and so we can have like discussion regarding this session over there also. If you have any queries, so we can take up. I hope sir can take up. So
It's all up to you. I mean, I feel that it may become little theoretical, but I wanted to emphasize the importance of alpha and beta. So I had to take that initial part because many a times sample size की उसके study में कितना था तो हम इतना ले लेते हैं. फिर वो बाद में retrospectively justifying it, and then the most disheartening part is that our studies are not being valued by anybody. Actually, we get it published, we have the credit to our portfolios and all that, we get promotions and everything, but in real sense we are not doing any honest, a substantial work then, I guess. On that moral note, I will stop.
I think like for raising the moral standards, this type of webinars should be there. So for everyone, I think everyone should attend it. So at least that part should be like clear. So finally, I would like to thank the IPSW-ZB Society, the President and Secretary, Speaker Sir, the Chairperson Sir, and the IT team and the audience for making this webinar like a wonderful session. So thank you so much for this webinar.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Deepak. Thank you, Dr. Keertan, Dr. Anup, and everybody in the audience. Yes, we will try and cover cohort and RCT sample size in due course of time. I am not really sure that we'll be able to cover it today or even in this series. However, in the next part of the series by research committee, we'll definitely try and keep a session on cohort and RCT. Thank you.